Acura Integra Type S. This is quite interesting because it is, of course, the sister car to the very aggressive Honda Civic Type R. Now, this is the first time both of them are available in the US at the exact same time. Of course, it's also discussed as the softer, more accessible version of that Type R, so we will discuss that a little bit. I'm on a good back road with this car, full of gas, ready to show you what it's like to actually drive it. A few things right away that are different than the Type R. First off, you've got this same panel that's in the other Integras that breaks up this, really, we actually think it's great, this mesh thing that hides all of your vents and has these little toggles. That is just a trim piece change to kind of class up the cabin. There's other things in here. Now, all of the materials are nicer than they are in the Type R by just a little bit. All of these HVAC controls are exactly the same. The steering wheels are similar. I mean, this is built on the same idea, many of the same parts, tuned differently. Of course, it's the same 6-speed. It is the same wheelbase. This car happens to be about 5 inches longer than the Type R, but its seats are not quite as aggressive. I actually kind of missed the heavy-duty seats, but look at this. Heated seats that are also electric seats, two things you do not get in your Type R. Those are manual seats that don't have any heating, and so once you're spending over $50,000, you start to wonder about that. This car, as spec'd, is $52,598, so just under $53,000. It does have the ELS Studio 3D audio in it, which is a very nice stereo. Still no sunroof, of course, because that's something that carries over from the Type R, but it is, as a key thing, it is a commute near luxury sedan that happens to have a 6-speed manual in it, which is one of the main reasons that we're talking about it. So let's take it for a drive. Speaking of the Type R, there it goes. See, told you. This does have comfort mode. It also has, if you look at the gauge here, Sport Plus. Sport Plus is similar to Sport Plus in the Type R. This does not have the R mode that is available in the Type R for obvious reasons, like, well, this is not intended to be put on a racetrack. Acura is working with all the same parts that Honda's working with the Type R. It's one of the reasons this is available in championship white, because Honda believes that all of their performance press cars should only come in championship white. So that's the color this is in. Of course, it does come in some really cool colors. I would love to see this in. I think it would be better. Sport Plus is an aggressive mode. Actually, this gets a little bit more power than the Type R does. 320 horsepower, 310 pound-feet of torque from that same 2-liter turbo engine. But interestingly, the mid-range torque in the Type S is better than it is in the Type R, so that kind of general usability, 3,000 to 4,000 RPM, this has a little bit more push to it than you'll find in the Type R. I find that really interesting in just kind of normal driving. Now I can come back down here, sport, comfort, everybody chills out a little bit. This is a softer, more compliant ride than the Type R most of the time. That's because Acura actually changed the damper setup. They used all the same parts, but they recalibrated the adaptive dampers, so they actually have a little bit different rebound, and as a result, you have a little bit nicer absorbing of bumps. This has rev match up and down in any mode, not just in the sporty modes. You put it in any mode and it will actually, see, rev match. There really isn't a way in this Type S to turn off all of the nannies unless you do a pedal dance, get it into a diagnostic mode. In Type R, you actually, in the R mode, you can actually get some of the nannies to turn off. This never really does it, but when you think about its usability and what it's intended for, that doesn't really surprise me too much. Another thing the Type S has that the Type R does not is a head-up display, which is actually very nice to see. The Type R has some shift lights across the top of the gauge cluster that this Type S doesn't get. Those shift lights are actually pretty cool, but this will give you heads up. tell exactly how much I'm speeding. This screen here and some of this starts to feel like, is this an over $50,000 car? Of course, that's an issue in the Type R as well. But in general, the feel of the seats, the look of the interior, this feels like a nicer car than the Type R does inside. Of course, the seats in the Type R are far superior. They're very aggressive, and I do miss the really aggressive bolstering because I'm a guy that likes a pretty aggressive seat. However, if you're talking about commuting in this car every day, those seats might be a bit much for the average person for a commute. I am fully expecting on this drive to run into a massive herd of sheep, which has been up here of late, wandering around back and forth across the road. Plus, we have a one-lane road today. That's exciting. Well, pardon me, I didn't realize that was going to happen. Alrighty, well. We'll just sit here together for a minute. That's exciting. She's wondering why I'm wearing a camera on my face. Glad we're not stopping there today. This has the same triple exhaust outlets in the center of the rear bumper that the Type R does. They're actually, they're given different surrounds, so they look the same size, even though it appears to be the same exact exhaust. It's also tuned a little bit differently, so this sounds a little bit differently than the Type R. Some people prefer this. I don't really care either way. Steering in this car is incredibly direct. There's no slop at all. There's so little sensation most of the time that only the front half of the car is doing all the work here. This is, like the Type R, just a spectacular victory in front-wheel drive dynamics. In the Sport Plus setting, yes, it's definitely aggressive, but it isn't punishing. The R setting on this same road in the Type R starts to be a lot. It starts to be an awful lot to tolerate. Of course, you could be in Sport Plus in that car as well. This absorbs bumps in general better than the Type R does, which plays to its intention, which is not to be as much of a track car and to be much more of a daily. That surge in this car is so immediate. The mid-range torque in this is very good, and right, there's no sense of turbo lag. If you're running along in the middle of a gear and you put your foot in it, it's ready immediately to do something. I am still expecting a huge herd of sheep on this road, which we will navigate as best we can. They have been wandering around the road with lazy sheepdogs that look at the cars like, well, yeah, I see you, but doesn't matter. This mid-range is so easy to modulate on this car. Tell there's some G-forces happening because everything is sliding around in the back of the car. This has the same 265 width tires on it that the Type R does. breath there between the gear changes as it finds its power again, but once you're in a gear, the power is just immediate. It does feel like it dies a little bit right up close to redline, like it doesn't have all of its breath close to redline, but how often are most people going to drive it that way? Here in a big hairpin with another one to follow, it doesn't tell me it's front wheel drive. It is, and if I floor it, you can actually tell it's front wheel drive. If you floor it suddenly, that's the place where you can kind of feel the front end is doing everything, but most of the time it doesn't reveal itself. It is surprisingly balanced in corners, also a trait of the Type R. All of the stuff in the back is trying to leave the cabin. Wonder where the sheep are today. That concerns me. A little bit of front wheel drive reveal on the exit of tight corners, but it is minimal. There's just a lot of power here. This Type S has something special about it that feels better than you would expect when you get in it. I really like the Type R. It is an incredible car to drive. It is also a sacrificial car. It is a car that requires you to put up with the things it doesn't do because it drives so brilliantly. And I'm a guy that I like that kind of stuff. But if you're buying a $50,000+ commute car, those sacrifices start to be an issue. They aren't an issue here. You are getting essentially the Type R. You are just getting a street-ready version of it. And I think for most people, probably the better version of it to actually use and drive and enjoy all the time. On a back road, you're going to have a great time with it. Still, I don't think on a back road you're going to enjoy the Type R more. I believe you would enjoy the Type R more on track, but if you're a person that never tracks, Type S. And then you start to get some of these features that feel luxury for $50,000, like your heated seats, like your good stereo, stuff that starts to feel like, okay, I understand I have some amenities in here that the Type R is just not set up for. Thank you for watching another POV. We have lots more coming across the board. So I have to say it, you gotta like and subscribe. If you don't like and subscribe, I guess I cry myself to sleep or I post about it on some sort of social. So there you go.